Hare Krishna, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you for coming to our continued reading of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Um, Today we are on the chapter, chapter number 829, which Prabhupada calls here the Rasa Dance Introduction. This corresponds to Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, chapter 29, which is titled there, Krishna and the Gopis Meet for the Rasa Dance. This is a long chapter, and so we're going to split it in two. So first, we're going to sing our little song that Prabhupada has in the beginning of Krishna book, which Lord Chaitanya chanted on the road. Krishna, 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 Rakshamam, Krishna, 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 Bhaktimam, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rama, Raghava, Rakshamam, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Krishna, Keshava, Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschacha De Satarane Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So chapter 19 of Krishna book, the Rasa Dance Introduction. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that the Rasa dance took place on the full moon night of the Sharat season. Sharat means autumn. From the statements of previous chapters, it appears that the festival of Govardhan Puja was performed just after the dark moon night of the month of Kartika, and thereafter the ceremony of Bratri Dvitiya was performed. I don't know what Bratri Dvitiya is, and I couldn't find out either when I looked. Can find out later. Somebody wants to do a little research, but he puts it here, the Bratri Dvitiya was performed. So Govardhan Puja, Bratri Dvitiya, then the wrath of Indra was exhibited in the shape of torrents of rain and hailstones, and Lord Krishna held up Govardhan Hill for 7 days until the 9th day of the moon. Thereafter, on the 10th day, the inhabitants of Vrindavan were talking amongst themselves about the wonderful activities of Krishna, and the next day, Ekadashi, was observed by Nanda Maharaj. On the next day, Dwadashi, Nanda Maharaj went to take a bath in the Ganges and was arrested by one of the men of Varuna. Then he was released by Lord Krishna. Then Nanda Maharaj, along with the cowherd men, was shown the spiritual sky. In this way, the full moon night of the Sharat season came to an end. The full moon night of Ashvina is called Sharat Purnima. It appears from the statements of Srimad Bhagavatam that Krishna had to wait another year for such a moon before enjoying the Rasa dance with the gopis. At the age of 7 years, he lifted Govardhan Hill. Therefore, the Rasa dance took place during his 8th year. That's very young, but also Krishna's development was accelerated so that he could get on with other things. From the Vedic literature, it appears that when a theatrical actor dances among many dancing girls, the group dance is called a rasa dance. When Krishna saw the full moon night of the Sharat season, decorated with various seasonal flowers, especially the Mulika flowers, which are very fragrant, he remembered the gopis' prayers to goddess Katyayani, wherein they prayed for Krishna to be their husband. He thought that the full moon night of the Sharat season was just suitable for a nice dance. So their desire to have Krishna as their husband would then be fulfilled. The word used in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam, the words used in this connection in Srimad Bhagavatam are Bhagavad Api. The verse begins, the first verse in the Bhagavatam, Bhagavan Api Ta Ratrihi. This means that although, that's the Api, this means that although Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, and thus has no desire that needs to be fulfilled, because he's always full with 6 opulences, he still wanted to enjoy the company of the gopis in the Rasa dance. Bhagavan Api signifies that this dance is not like the ordinary dancing of young boys and young girls. The specific word used in Srimad Bhagavatam, words used in Srimad Bhagavatam, are Yoga Maya Upashritaha, which mean that this dancing with the gopis is on the platform of Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. When it says this, Yoga Mayam Upashritaha, he resorted to Yoga Maya. And here in the Bhagavatam, in the word for word, it translates Yoga Maya, his spiritual potency that makes the impossible possible. So that's his Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. So Prabhupada continues here in Krishna book, the dancing of young boys and girls within the material world is in the kingdom of Mahamaya, or the external energy. The Rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis is on the platform of Yoga Maya. The difference between the platforms of Yoga Maya and Mahamaya is compared in the Chaitanya Charitamrita to the difference between gold and iron. From the viewpoint of metallurgy, gold and iron are both metals, but the quality is completely different. Similarly, although the Rasa dance and Lord Krishna's association with the gopis appears like the ordinary mixing of young boys and girls, the quality is completely different. The difference is appreciated by great Vaishnavas because they can understand the difference between love of Krishna and lust. On the Mahamaya platform, dances take place on the basis of sense gratification. But when Krishna called the gopis by sounding his flute, they very hurriedly rushed toward the spot of the Rasa dance with the transcendental desire to satisfy Krishna. The author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has explained that lust means sense gratification, and love also means sense gratification, but for Krishna. In other words, when activities are enacted on the platform of personal sense gratification, they're called material activities. But when they are enacted for the satisfaction of Krishna, then they are spiritual activities. On any platform of activities, the principle of sense gratification is there. But on the spiritual platform, sense gratification is for the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, where on the material platform, it is for the performer. Prabhupada says, one place he said, where devotees have no other way of experiencing happiness except by seeing that Krishna is happy in all respects. That's one way to illustrate this. For example, on the material platform, when a servant serves a master, he's trying to satisfy not the senses of his master, but rather his own senses. The servant would not serve the master if the payment stopped. That means that the servant engages himself in the service of the master just to satisfy his own senses. On the spiritual platform, however, the servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead serves Krishna without payment, and he continues his service in all conditions. That is the difference between Krishna consciousness and material consciousness. As mentioned above, it appears that Krishna enjoyed the Rasa dance with the gopis when he was 8 years old. At that time, many of the gopis were married because in India, especially in those days, girls were married at a very early age. There are even many instances of a girl's giving birth to a child at the age of 12. Under the circumstances, all the gopis who wanted to have Krishna as their husband were already married. At the same time, they continued to hope that Krishna would be their husband. Their attitude toward Krishna was that of paramour love. Therefore, the loving affairs of Krishna with the gopis are called parakiya rasa. The attitude of a married man who desires another wife, or the wife who desires another husband, is called parakiya rasa. There's swakiya, your own, and parakiya, another's. Actually, Krishna is the husband of everyone because he is the supreme enjoyer. The gopis wanted Krishna to be their husband, but factually there was no possibility of his marrying all the gopis. But because they had that natural tendency to accept Krishna as their supreme husband, the relationship between the gopis and Krishna is called parakiya rasa. This Parakya Rasa is ever existent in Goloka Vrindavan, in the spiritual sky, where there is no possibility of the inebriety which characterizes Parakya Rasa in the material world. In the material world, Parakya Rasa is abominable, whereas in the spiritual world, it is present in the super excellent relationship of Krishna and the gopis. There are many relationships with Krishna: master and servant, friend, parent and son, and lover and beloved. Out of all of these rasas, the Parakya rasa is considered to be the topmost. This material world is the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. It is just like the reflection of a tree on the bank of a reservoir of water. The topmost part of the tree is seen as the lowest part. Similarly, it is just like the reflection of a tree on the bank of a reservoir of water. Excuse me, I just read it. On the bank of the reservoir of water, the topmost part is the tree of the tree is seen as the lowest part. Similarly, parakya rasa, when pervertedly reflected in the material world, is most abominable. Therefore, when people imitate the rasa dance of Krishna with the gopis, they simply enjoy the perverted, abominable reflection of the transcendental parakya rasa. There is no possibility of enjoying this transcendental parakya rasa within the material world. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not imitate this parakya rasa even in a dream or imagination. Those who do so drink the most deadly poison. When Krishna, the supreme enjoyer, desired to enjoy the company of the gopis on that full moon night of the Sharad season, exactly at that very moment the moon, the lord of the stars, appeared in the sky, displaying its most beautiful features. The full moon night of the Sharad season is the most beautiful night in the year. In the Indian city of Agra, in Uttar Pradesh province, there's a great monument called the Taj Mahal, which is a tomb made of first-class marble stone. During the night of the full moon of the Sharad season, many foreigners go to see the beautiful reflections of the moon on the tomb. Thus, this full moon night is celebrated even today for its beauty. When the full moon rose in the east, it tinged everything with a reddish color. With the rising of the moon, the whole sky appeared smeared by red kumkuma. When a husband, long separated from his wife, returns home, he decorates the face of his wife with red kumkum. This long expected moonrise of the Sharat season was thus smearing the eastern sky. The appearance of the moon increased Krishna's desire to dance with the gopis. The forests were filled with fragrant flowers. The atmosphere was cooling, and festive. When Lord Krishna began to blow his flute, the gopis all over Vrindavan became enchanted. Their attraction to the vibration of the flute increased 1,000 times due to the rising full moon, the red horizon, the calm and cool atmosphere, and the blossoming flowers. All the gopis were by nature very much attracted to Krishna's beauty, And when they heard the vibration of his flute, they became apparently lustful to satisfy the senses of Krishna. Immediately upon hearing the vibration of the flute, they all left their respective engagements and proceeded to the spot where Krishna was standing. While they ran swiftly, their earrings swung back and forth. They all rushed to the place known as Vamshivata. Some of them were engaged in milking cows, but they left their milking business half finished and immediately went to Krishna. One of them had just collected milk and put it in a milk pan on the stove to boil, but she did not care whether the milk overboiled and spilled. She immediately left to go see Krishna. Some of them were breastfeeding their small babies, and some were engaged in distributing food to the members of their families, but they left all such engagements and immediately rushed to the spot where Krishna was playing his flute. Some were engaged in serving their husbands, and some were engaged, and some were themselves engaged in eating, but caring neither to serve their husbands nor eat, they immediately left. Some of them wanted to decorate their faces with cosmetic ointments and to dress themselves very nicely before going to Krishna, but unfortunately, they could not finish their cosmetic decorations or put on their clothes in the right way because of their anxiety to meet Krishna immediately. Their faces were decorated hurriedly and were haphazardly finished. Some even put the lower part of their clothes on the upper part of their bodies and the upper part on the lower part. While other gopis were hurriedly leaving their respective places, their husbands, brothers, and fathers were all struck with wonder to know where they were going. Being young girls, they were protected either by husbands, elder brothers, or fathers. All their guardians forbade them to go to Krishna, but they disregarded them. When a person becomes attracted by Krishna and is in full Krishna consciousness, he does not care for any worldly duties, even though very urgent. Krishna consciousness is so powerful that it gives everyone relief from all material activities. Srila Rupa Goswami has written a very nice verse wherein one gopi advises another, "My dear friend, if you desire to enjoy the company of material society, friendship, and love, then please do not go to see that smiling boy Govinda, who is standing on the bank of the Jamuna and playing his flute, his lips brightened by the beams of the full moonlight." Srila Rupa Goswami indirectly instructs that one who has been captivated by the beautiful, smiling face of Krishna has lost all attraction for material enjoyments. This is the test of advancement in Krishna consciousness. A person advancing in Krishna consciousness must lose interest in material activities and personal sense gratification. Some of the gopis were factually detained from going to Krishna by their husbands and were locked up by force within their rooms. Being unable to go to Krishna, they began to meditate upon his transcendental form by closing their eyes. They already had the form of Krishna within their minds. They proved to be the greatest yogis. As is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, a person who is constantly thinking of Krishna within his heart with faith and love is considered to be the topmost of all yogis. This is the verse, Yoginam api sarvesham, uh, Bhagavad Gita 647. Actually, a yogi concentrates his mind on the form of Lord Vishnu. That is real yoga. Krishna is the original form of all Vishnu tattvas. The gopis who could not go to Krishna personally, so they began to meditate on him as perfect yogis. In the conditioned stage of the living entity, there are two kinds of results of fruitive activities. The conditioned living entity, who is constantly engaged in sinful activities, has suffering as his result, and he who is engaged in pious activities has material enjoyment as a result. In either case, material suffering or material enjoyment, the sufferer or enjoyer is conditioned by material nature. The gopi associates of Krishna who assembled in the place where Krishna was appearing were from different groups. Most of the gopis were eternal companions of Krishna. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitavi. In the spiritual world, the associates of Krishna, especially the gopis, are manifestations of the pleasure potency of Lord Krishna. They are expansions of Srimati Radharani. But when Krishna exhibits his transcendental pastimes within the material world, in some of the universes, not only the eternal associates of Krishna come, that is with him, but also those who are being promoted to that status from this material world. So some of the gopis who joined Krishna's pastimes within this material world were coming from the status of ordinary human beings. If they had been bound by fruitive action, they were fully freed from the reactions of karma by constant meditation on Krishna. Their severely painful yearnings caused by their not being able to see Krishna freed them from all sinful reactions, because it's a kind of a pain, and their ecstasy of transcendental love for Krishna in his absence ended all their reactions to material pious activities. So both kinds of karma, good and bad, are destroyed in this way. The conditioned soul is subjected to birth and death, either by pious or sinful activities. But the gopis who began to meditate on Krishna transcended both positions and became purified and thus elevated to the status of the gopis already expanded by his pleasure potency. All the gopis who concentrated their minds on Krishna in the spirit of paramour love became fully purified of all the fruitive reactions of material nature, and some of them immediately gave up their material bodies developed under the three modes of material nature. Maharaj Parikshit heard Shukadev Goswami explain the situation of the gopis who assembled with Krishna in the Rasa dance. When he heard that some of the gopis, simply by concentrating on Krishna as their paramour, became freed from all contamination of material birth and death, he said, the gopis did not know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They accepted him as a beautiful boy and considered him to be their paramour. So how was it possible for them to get freed from the material condition just by thinking of a paramour? One should consider here that Krishna and ordinary living beings are qualitatively one. The ordinary living beings, being part and parcel of Krishna, are also Brahman, but Krishna is the supreme para Brahman. The question is, if it is possible for a devotee to get free from the material contaminated stage simply by thinking of Krishna, then why should this not be possible for others who are also thinking of someone? If someone is thinking of a husband or son, or if anyone at all is thinking of another living entity, then since all living entities are also Brahman, why are all those who thus think of others not freed from the contaminated stage of material nature? This is a very intelligent question because though there are always atheists imitating Krishna, in these days of Kali Yuga, there are many rascals who think themselves to be as good as Krishna and who cheat people into believing that thinking of them is as good as thinking of Lord Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj, apprehending the future dangerous condition of blind followers, of demoniac imitators, therefore asked this question, and fortunately, it is recorded in the Srimad Bhagavatam to warn innocent people that thinking of an ordinary man and thinking of Krishna are not the same. Actually, even thinking of the demigods cannot compare with thinking of Krishna. It is warned in the Vaishnava Tantra that one who puts Vishnu, Narayan, or Krishna on the same level as the demigods is called a Prashandi, or rascal. On hearing this question from Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadev Goswami replied, "My dear king, your question is already answered even before this incident." Because Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clear up the situation, his spiritual master answered him very intelligently. Why are you again asking about the same subject matter which has already been explained to you? Why are you so forgetful? A spiritual master is already in the superior position, so he has the right to chastise his disciple in this way. Shukadev Goswami knew that Maharaj Parikshit asked the question not for his own understanding, as but as a warning to the future innocent people who might think others to be equal to Krishna. Shukadev Goswami then reminded Maharaj Parikshit about the salvation of Shishupala. Shishupal was always envious of Krishna, and because of his envy, Krishna killed him. But since Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shishupal gained salvation simply by seeing him. If an envious person can get salvation simply by concentrating his mind on Krishna, then what to speak of the gopis who are so dear to Krishna and always think of him in love? There must be some difference between the enemies and the friends. If Krishna's enemies could get freed from material contamination and become one with the Supreme, then certainly his dear friends like the gopis can achieve such freedom and much more. Besides that, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is called Hrishikesha, Shukadev Goswami also said that Krishna is Hrishikesha, the super soul, whereas an ordinary man is a conditioned soul covered by the material body. Krishna and Krishna's body are the same because he is Hrishikesha. Any person making a distinction between Krishna and Krishna's body is fool number one. Krishna is Hrishikesha and Adhokshaja. These two particular words have been used by Shukadev Goswami in this instance. Hrishikesha is the super soul and Adhokshaja is the supreme personality of Godhead, transcendental to material nature. Just to show favor to the ordinary living entities, out of his causeless mercy, he appears as he is. Unfortunately, foolish persons mistake him to be an ordinary person, and so they become eligible to go to hell. Shukadev Goswami continued to inform Maharaj Parikshit that Krishna is not an ordinary person, but rather the supreme personality of Godhead, imperishable, immeasurable, and without any material qualities, but full of all spiritual qualities. He appears in this material world out of his causeless mercy, and wherever he appears as he is, without change. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says he appears by his spiritual potency. He does not appear under the control of the material potency. The material potency is under his control. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the material potency is working under his superintendence. Maya Jakshena Prakriti, that's 9:10. It is also confirmed in the Brahma Samhita that the material potency, known as Durga, is acting just like the shadow of the substance. The conclusion is that if one somehow or other becomes attached to Krishna or attracted to him, either because of his qualities of beauty, opulence, fame, strength, renunciation, or knowledge, through affection or friendship, or even through lust, anger, or fear, then one's salvation and freedom from material contamination are assured. In the Bhagavad Gita, 18th chapter, the Lord states that one who is engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness is very dear to him. A preacher has to face many difficulties in his struggle to preach pure Krishna consciousness. Sometimes he has to suffer bodily injuries, and sometimes he has to meet death also. All this is taken as a great austerity on behalf of Krishna. Krishna therefore has said that such a preacher is very, very dear to him. If Krishna's enemies can expect salvation simply by concentrating their minds on him, then what to speak of persons who are so dear to Krishna? The conclusion should be that the salvation of those who are engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness in the world is guaranteed in all circumstances. That's a pretty bold statement, isn't it? The conclusion should be that the salvation of those who are engaged in preaching Krishna consciousness in the world is guaranteed in all circumstances. But such preachers never care for salvation because factually, one who is engaged in Krishna consciousness, devotional service, has already achieved salvation. Shukadeva Goswami therefore assured King Parikshit that he should always rest assured that one who is attracted by Krishna attains liberation from material bondage, because Krishna is the transcendental master of all mystic power. When all the gopis assembled, as described, when all the gopis assembled as described before Krishna, he began to speak to them, welcoming them as well as discouraging them by word jugglery. Krishna is the supreme speaker. He is the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. He can speak on the highest elevated subjects of philosophy, politics, economics, everything. And he also spoke before the gopis, who were so dear to him. He wanted to enchant them by word jugglery, and thus he began to speak as follows. And we'll break here and read the second part of this chapter next time.
Thank you very much for that reading. And now I'll invite everybody, if you have any comments or questions, anything you would like to add, go ahead and use the raise hand feature if you're on Zoom, or you can type into the comment section that you would like to ask a question. You're also welcome to post your question in the comment section if you prefer to type it out. And those of you on Facebook are also welcome to post questions in the comment section there. And Kula Pradeep added that Hindus celebrate Ratri Dvitiya, aka Baj Duj or Baya Duj, on the second day after Diwali, marking the end of Diwali celebrations, when sisters exhibit their love by putting an auspicious tilak on their forehead of their brothers and perform an arati of him to protect him from evil forces. And there's some back and forth between Sharad Chandra and Kula Pradeep about Raksha Bandha, if it's the same thing or not. But and Anindita has a question, so go ahead and unmute yourself, Anindita.
Hi Krishna, Gurudev.
Hi Krishna, good to see you.
Thank you so much for the reading. I had a comment on the festival that we were just talking about. Baya Duj, Baya means brother, and like they were just discussing, there's this little story about it, which is spoken in the Hindu tradition, that Yamuna Devi, she invites her brother, that's Yamaraj, for lunch, and when he visits, she really pleases him by preparing all kinds of preparations, and he's very happy with her, and he asks her she tells her to ask a boon, and she asks for the boon, which is any brother who visits his sister on this day should never have to see hell. And he grants her that boon, and he also gives her the blessing that any sister who invites her brother for a feast will never become a widow. So that's just an extension of some details of the festival.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know about that.
Thank you for adding those details. Very interesting. Radhika Ramana Prabhu says, beautiful reading. Let us know when you will continue next time. Next week.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
7 o'clock Eastern time
We'll
next
break
week.
the second half of this chapter. Gets better as you go along.
And I just wanted to make a couple of reflections here. I really appreciated that reminder that Srila Prabhupada inserted about the test of spiritual advancement is if your material desires are decreasing, and saying that in response to, following Rupa Goswami's quotation about if you care to continue on in the material world, don't see Govinda.
Yeah, that's right. Stay away.
Yeah. And I also found it interesting, you always pick up little gems along the way. They just didn't read, didn't recognize the first time around, and that not all the gopis, well, some of the gopis came from just ordinary human beings on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
That was very interesting. Any other comments or questions?
I think that Prabhupada has mentioned that generally when devotees are liberated, they first go to a place where Krishna is doing his pastimes
They get
somewhere in
trained
the
up,
universe, get trained up there, and then they go to the spiritual sky.
Yeah. I think you made the point that came up in an earlier class, and you made the point that there's not much difference, because if you're already engaged in that service of Krishna, that for you, as a servant, you wouldn't really notice the difference. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, did you have a question? I see you're unmuted there.
Yes, Mataji.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your service. My obeisances to Maharaj. This is a difficult question because this is a delicate subject, and I didn't have time to prepare my question, and I do like to prepare my questions. I'll try my best. This is related to, if I may say it, to my humble realization while Ravindra Maharaj was reading, and I was accompanying the reading with my Krishna book, and my realization is as follows. Srila Prabhupada, being an acharya, and yes, better than being a spiritual master, he was an acharya, establishing Krishna consciousness for the next 10,000 years in order to give spiritual benefit to humanity. He approaches this subject with his Krishna book, particularly in relation to this chapter, the Rasa Dance Introduction, very carefully in order to teach to the readers that there is a huge difference between going to the Rasa dance with Krishna and going to dance the disco in the disco place, or going to dance the samba or the mambo or any material dance in the places
or the cha-cha-cha.
or the cha-cha-cha, yes. So the Srila Prabhupada, while writing about being careful to not be mistaken, for the reader not to be mistaken, thinking that the material dances and rasa dance are the same, he is educating us and reminding us that the Rasa dance is not a common dance. It is a completely spiritual. Yes, the name is the Rasa dance, the dance of love. But for his readers, in order for his readers to not think that this is like the material dances, he, step by step, he give us guidance in order for us to be able to make the difference. And my understanding is that while he is doing this, he is writing, and I think this is the ability of an acharya. He give us teachings in order for us to, while reading, become purified. So what I need from Maharaj right now is at least a small comment related to Srila Prabhupada as an acharya, writing this chapter in such a way that he is there preventing from us to be not giving us the opportunity to approach the Rasa dance with proper knowledge and realization, and for this we need to become purified. So many passages here until the point we stop trying to teach us that there is a difference between material dance of love and the spiritual dance of love. If you could say something, Maharaj, about how careful Srila Prabhupada is while writing in order to purify the reader.
He wrote the Krishna book so that his new disciples could get some idea of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Generally, you're instructed that you shouldn't just go straight to this part or the 10th canto itself, but have to read all the other cantos. But he still wanted to give some idea of the 10th canto. So therefore, he presented it in this very, very careful way, so that we could get some idea of what was in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, including this Rasa dance. So you see how carefully he has done it, and how carefully he has told people about the difference between love and lust. That love means ultimately that you are doing something simply to please the other and don't care about your own pleasure. And this is really only ultimately possible with Krishna himself. When there's love for Krishna, you forget. The more you forget about your own pleasure and happiness, actually, the more happiness you feel anyway. And it's a different, it's ecstasy, but it has no selfishness in it whatsoever. Whereas material pleasure makes you identify with your body, and you become addicted to all kinds of activities. So it's a real difference. And so here you can see how carefully Prabhupada presented this part of Krishna Leela, especially since many Christian missionaries and people like that who came to India would then think of Krishna as some kind of lascivious rural Romeo who's going around with other men's wife, who's really scandalous, and Hindus are very bad for worshiping such a bad person, and all these other kinds of things. And so here Prabhupada is taking pains to present it properly and to train his disciples, especially, to understand Krishna. And of course, Prabhupada always teaching us to follow the regular principles, which are makes you the possibility of actually tasting spiritual happiness. Spiritual happiness doesn't make you identify with your body, doesn't make you greedy, doesn't make you selfish. It makes you want to serve Krishna the more and please Krishna. Whatever makes Krishna happy, you're become happy. A devotee has no way experiencing happiness except by seeing that Krishna is satisfied in all respects. So it's spiritual love means service to Krishna and service to the devotees who are serving Krishna. And that's actual real love, and quite different from lust, where I want to engage other people in my service. I am the enjoyer and I am the controller. Very, very different. And this is the clearest explanation of it that I've seen anywhere.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. And Anindita, did you have another question? Or you, I saw your hand was raised and then lowered.
Yeah, I was just typing it in, but I just wanted to say that what struck me the most in today's reading was that when Krishna was playing his flute, the gopis became lustful to satisfy his senses.
Yeah, that's right.
That was like, wow. And obviously I cannot even imagine what that means, but just like hearing those words, it gave me so much relief in the heart just to hear that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah. And Shivananda Sena Prabhu, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much for the reading. You accept my humble obeisances. I just wanted to ask regarding I read something interesting in the third canto recently. It seemed a little esoteric. It said that just as Krishna in Vrindavan is engaged in rasa enjoyment with the gopis, that Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is engaged in rasa enjoyment with his external potency in the
With
third
who?
canto, with the external potency, with his external potency.
I'd have to see the passage. You can mark it out and send it to me or whatever, and I can look at it. I'd have
Sure.
to look at the context. I don't remember reading that, but
Okay. I was just
we can
curious
share
what
it.
that might mean.
Yeah, I don't remember reading something like that, but it's been a while since I've read the third canto too. So, find the passage and the reference and send it to us so we can look at it, and then either next week we can talk about it, or see what it
Sure.
says. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for
Okay.
raising that.
Sure.
Sure.
Oh, I think I just found it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So it says it's in 3:9:14.
Here, I'll bring it up also here.
Okay, we can do it now. Yeah.
1 second.
Um,
3:9:14, you said?
That's right.
3:9:14. Here we come. Okay.
So it begins with the word rasa is significant herein. The rasa dance is performed by Lord Krishna in the company of the cowherd damsels at Vrindavan, and the personality of Godhead Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is also engaged in rasa enjoyment with his external potency, by which he creates, maintains, and dissolves the entire material manifestation.
Wow.
That's interesting. I've forgotten this. Let's see. So here, the Supreme Lord is eternally distinguished from the living entities by his internal potency, although he is understood in his impersonal feature by self-realized intelligence. The word rasa, okay. I don't know. Interesting. I'll have to do some research on this one.
Krishna.
I could look at some other commentaries on this one. Yeah, it does say enjoyment with his external potency. I mean, because Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is actually, that is his pastime. He creates, maintains, and dissolves the material manifestation, but it calls it rasa enjoyment. So that's interesting. Usually, when it's with the external potency, he takes on the aspect of Lord Shiva, and does that. So anyway, I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhu. Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank you for bringing that up. That's interesting. Kendra Prabhu says, I liked how when Shukadev Goswami chastised Maharaj Parikshit for asking about something he had previously heard, but Parikshit's motive was to clarify the subject for others. I find myself asking the same questions over and over again, but out of genuine forgetfulness.
Tends to happen sometimes, doesn't it?
And Sankarsana Prabhu says, Rasa means taste also, so there may be some taste in Garbhodakshaya Vishnu's engagement.
Yeah, but it's not rasa with a short A. It's rasa with a long A. That's a different kind of an idea. But we'll check it out. Okay.
Okay, I think that brings us to a close for today. And
All right. So stay tuned for the next installment.
yeah, next week.
Thank
7
you very
o'clock.
much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Krishna book ki jai.
Jai.